My name is Jim Maguire. I was born in Newburyport on February 19th, 1930. I've lived here all my life. They can't get rid of me. I lived on Union Street and Water Street, combined down the end of it at a point, and on the other end was the south end of Marlborough. And that area, if you look at a map of Newburyport, it looks just like a flat iron, and that's exactly what it is. They used to call the point Flatiron Point, and it was called Joppy, and it was spelled J-O-P-P-Y. And if you lived there, you were a Joppyite. That's what everybody called you. He's a Joppyite. When I was a kid, about 3 or 4 years old, it was in 1940, 41. I was down on Water Street, right opposite Simmons's Beach. And the older kids were running back and forth across the street, so I thought I'd join them, and I started running with them. And they kept running, and they were running back and forth, and then this time I started running out, and I didn't know there was a Coast Guard truck coming, but he hit me. And he didn't really hurt me, he just knocked me down, but the guy was scared to death, and he got out of the truck, and he picked me up and carried me up through. They asked the other kids where I lived, and they told him right up there. And he carried me up through the thing, up through the yard. And my mother saw us coming, so she came out. And she said, "What's the matter?" And he had to tell her that he hit me with the truck. So my mother said, "Well, put him down." And he put me down. She says, "Walk down there." I walked down there. She says, "Come back here." I went back there. She picked me up and walloped my rear end, set me down and said, "Now get upstairs and get into bed and stay there. I told you not to go down there." And she said to the Coast Guardsman, "He's all right." And he was standing there with his mouth open. There was 2 times in my life I've been hit by vehicles. And the other time was I was in the 5th or 6th grade in the Brown School. And I was coming home, and it was snowing pretty hard, and I had a heavy coat on with a hat pulled way down over almost over my eyes, covering my ear, and I was walking down going home for lunch at noontime. And I got down on Brumfield Street, and I went to cross the street at Purchase, and all of a sudden I went whump, and another car hit me, and it was an undertaker's car. And he wanted to take me home, but I wouldn't let him. I was scared, and I wouldn't get in the car, and I started. So he left, and I ended up home. And when I got down to my house, I looked, and there was this car. He knew me, and he took me down. And he went down and told my mother and father. They told me I should have done that. Well, I should have gone with them. And the one thing I'll say is, if you're going to get hit by a car, get hit by an undertaker, because then you don't have to worry about the coffin or any of that stuff. We used to hang out down on Ocean Avenue. That was where that little pond is, right on off of there. And there was no houses there then. There was all empty space, and the Johnsons people owned it, and we went over there and got permission from them, and we could always go skating there in the winter time, and we used to go up back of the cemetery and catch hornpouts and bring them down there, and then we'd let them go down in that pond there, and then we used to be able to catch hornpouts all summer long. And that's all we did. We just, summer and winter, we played down in that area when we were kids. And I was alive when, up where I lived on Union Street, just below us, there was 2 huge gas tanks. And there was a factory there that made the gas, and they pumped it into the thing, and then trucks could come and load their trucks up and carry it off and pump it into houses or wherever they needed it. And when they finally got through with it, they just left it empty, and that's what it was when I was growing up. It was all an empty building. Then they decided to tear it all down, and they pulled it down. And we was over there the day they pulled the chimney down, and it came down with a huge crash. And the wind was blowing just right so that it carried all the soot and dirt and covered the whole crowd that was sitting there watching what was going on. They used to burn coal there, and a lot of times they never used all the coal wasn't used up, so they used to dump it on the road and use it so they could get their trucks down in there. And people in the area used to go over there with buckets, and they could pick up live coal that never got burnt and used to take it home and burn it. That's what we had for fuel. Wood and coal is what we used. We swam at Simmons's Beach. Simmons's Beach was started in 1933, I think it was. And it was just a big, huge stone there with a ramp where the boats climbers used to bring the boats in, and after they were climbing out in the river, and they take them to the clam shanties that were there, and they prepare them and sell them to the people. And after a while, on that beach, the man that became the Ward 1 councilor, his name was Herbert Simmons, and he got the city to go down and bring up a bunch of sand. They brought truckloads after truckloads. They filled the whole area in. It was just like going down to Plum Island on the beach, and it was in the river. The only problem was the river was filthy because all the sewage from the whole city of Newburyport and all the way up around the river used to come down in that river and used to back up in that area. So eventually, in the summertime, we stayed there all the time. We never left that area. We used to walk. We take our shoes off. All we ever wore was the bathing suit. No shoes. Run across the clamshells with bare feet. Never bother us or anything. So we toughened our feet up. And so eventually, they come to realize that we were in real danger of swimming in that water, so they closed the whole river off for swimming, and then the beach that was there just kind of petered away, and it just went. Now there's no sand there; it's all eelgrass and a little bit of a ramp that there's no wood or anything, and that's the way it is. When we went to the Johnson estate, we used to go there on Saturdays, and they had a big floor, and they'd have all the equipment. They have mops and stuff, and 3 or 4 of us would go in and we'd mop the floor, let it dry, and then we used to wax it from. Then she'd give us a dime so we'd go to the movies. And that's what it cost to get in the movies at that time, was 10 cents. That's how we did it. And we also used to weed the gardens. She paid us to weed the gardens. They had a cider press there, and it was a hand cranked one, and they had russet apple trees there. They were the best apples there was for cider, and she used to let us use the thing, but we had to have a parent with us before we could press our own cider. And so my mother used to go down with us, and all the kids in the neighborhood would go down with jugs. We'd all fill up jugs up for Thanksgiving. That's where we got our cider from.
Where was that? Where's the farm?
Down where Dick Walsh used to live. Do you remember where he lived?
No, I'm not sure.
It's torn out of there now. It's gone. It was right across from that pond.
Okay. So what street is that off of?
On Ocean Avenue.
On Ocean Ave?
Yeah, Ocean Avenue was the Newburyport end of that road that went down there, and the other end is Rolf's Lane. Okay. So it's got 2 names.
So there was a pond back there?
Yeah, they're still there now. They used to let us over there, and we did there summer and winter skating. We either skating, and we had to clear it off ourselves with shovels, and we used to play hockey there all day long. That's all we did.
So where did they used to have the apple trees then?
They were on the farm out back. They had all around. It was all around the big barn they had there.
On Rolf's Lane?
Yeah, but the trees are all gone now. In fact, I don't think there's any russet apple trees around anywhere at all. It's a thing that's gone by, because that's all they really were good for was cider. But they made the best cider there was. We used to use a wagon they had a horse wagon there, old wooden wagon, and we used to take them. She used to let us borrow it. They were picking ragweed a couple of years, 1940, 41, they did the ragweed, and we got the permission to use the wagon, and we went from down on Water Street, we went from Ocean Avenue up to where the clam shanties were, pulling all the ragweed out on the river side of the thing. And we filled the wagon right chock full of ragweed. They paid for it for you to do that. So we took the wagon up to the old NAC field where the high school used to play their football, and it was in the south end of the city. It was right up off Oak Street. And we took it up there, and those people there, they gave us $5 for the load. We thought we were rich beyond all dreams.
So the football stadium wasn't at the high school. Where was it before?
Yeah. I got a picture of it. My grandson found it somewhere. I have no clue where he got it from. It was 1937, and they used to have the stands there. They were old rickety stands that they used to have there, and they used to play the football games there before they built the new high school.
So whereabouts is this?
You know where Oak Street is?
Yeah.
And that little lane that comes down through there, it was right in there. Huh. From South Pond Street, Newburyport, to Oak Street, there was an empty field, and that's where they had the field, and they played football.
And then they moved to the Memorial Stadium?
When they built the stadium and stuff up there, they moved up there.
So what year did they build that?
It was during the Depression, in the 30s. That's when they went up there.
Huh.
Oh, it was after the 30s. It had to been right after 1937, because I got that football team. There's the pictures of all of the first team with the coach, and the stands were in the back of it. And I went down to the archives in the library, and I got an old class book that they had there, and I picked the names out of it, and I got every name for every one of the players that was there. And I got them on the back now. I might have a couple of them in the different place, but most of them are just where they're supposed to be.
Huh. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a nice picture. I don't know who's going to get it after we go. Somebody will grab it. Then when we got through working there, we got a little bit older. We were in our teens. And my father bought us a boat from Al Keys, a rowboat. And we used to go flounder fishing. And we'd go flounder fishing out in the river. You could catch any amount of them. They were just teeming on the incoming and outgoing tide. We never fished the outgoing tide. We always filled bushel baskets full on the incoming. And we'd take them in, and we'd clean them and fillet them and take them around the neighborhood and sell them for 25 cents a package. We'd have a whole bunch of fish in it. And everybody was tickled to death. They used to be waiting for us when we come. Then this was before Dick Waltz had just come around here, and he was in charge of Suffolk Farms. They used to plant the spinach on these fields here, and so they used to come. They put ads in the paper that they wanted kids to come down and pick weeds and pick the spinach. So we used to meet the thing. We'd come down here and we'd pick weeds, pull the weeds out of the spinach, and used to cut it for them and put it in bushel baskets, and so they could sell it. And when I do something like that, I stay right at it and I pull every weed I could find, and I was probably the best picker that they had. And they used to take me around to other farms to work when doing that. So Spencer Pierce was owned by. So what was Spencer Pierce when you were a kid then? It was Sackey Onus's farm, and there was a woman from out of town that owned it. And he was a caretaker here. And he had cows, and he farmed up until when they came, and then they took it over. Then Dick Waltz took the thing over, and then when the Suffolk Farms got through, he kept the farm and kept growing and raising stuff of his own and selling it on the Boston market. So that's where it kept going like that.
So did he own it, or did the...
No, he didn't own it. He just, whoever would... I don't know who owned it at that time. I don't remember when Spencer Pierce picked it up.
Yeah.
You know, when it became this. Because once I got away from there, we never came down here much after that. We got older and we went different places, swimming down Plum Island and swimming on the bridge and stuff like that. So by that time I was getting into high school, and my 4 years in high school, my 4 summers, I got hired by Al Keyser. He was a tuna fisherman, and he used to go tuna fishing, fishing out of here. But during the war, they had an artillery battery over to Salisbury Beach, and every afternoon they used to fire guns out into the ocean at targets. Either a boat was towing it or a plane was towing it, and everybody had to get out of that area. So Al took his boat down to York Harbor, and we fished out of there, went fishing down there. And Al was probably one of the best tuna fishermen, harpooner was running. We did all harpooning, and I don't think we ever got less than 75 fish in a year. And one year we got 115 of them. So he really was good at it. We used to go. You could only go when the weather was fine. If it really got blowing, you had to come in because you couldn't be able to see them. And so that's where we did that. And after I got through with Al, I went to work for my father, who was doing masonry work, and I went to work with him. And first of it, we were doing a lot of plastering. And I was plastering by myself 2 houses a week. I would put the brown coat on one, wait for it to dry, then put the brown coat on the other one, wait for it to dry, then go back and put a skim coat over it. And that's what we did for a living. And finally, at that time, the only plastering that was being done in the whole country was in Florida, California, and the Northeast. But eventually it all died out. Now everything is sheetrock and stuff like that they put in there. So then I went into doing masonry work, chimneys, and I did a lot of foundations on Plum Island, cement blocks. Hold the building up, dig the sand out, and put a cellar underneath it. That's what we did for a living. Then in 1951, I was drafted into the Army, and I had to go. I went down to Fort Dix, did my basic training, and then they put us into another outfit. We thought we was all headed for a career as an infantryman, but it wasn't. What they did was they took us to Virginia, took us down there, got us lined up, and then they took us back up and sent us to Fort Devon, which didn't hurt my feelings none because I was right close to it, and I was home every weekend. So there was a school there, and they taught us, teach us Morse code and radio work, and that's what we did. And then we went. Then when we got through there, then they shipped us over to Korea, and they shipped me to the East Coast, and we were doing direction planning. We had a truck out in the rice paddies on dry land, and the aerials were set up. And what we do, there'd be these places all the way across the country, and this one radio, they would pick the radio up and copy the message, and then they send it to us and get us to it, and we used to tune and catch out where it was. Then we had a machine that we pushed a button on it, and it would go out and put a line right out over the top of it. And each one of these places did the same thing. So if you had a line going here, and a line going here, and a line going here, and where they crossed, that's where that radio station was. But the only thing it wasn't the radio station, that's where the aerials were. And you know, if you ever notice Newburyport Station, you go over to Salisbury and you see the aerial that's sitting up there?
Yep.
Well, that's the aerial. And the reason they do that is so nobody could blow the station up. If there was ever a war or something like that.
Huh.
And they couldn't do that. That's why they did that. And so while I was there, I met a guy from Fort Devens. I met him up there to go to school, and we became good buddies. We went over there to Korea. We were there together, and he brought a camera with him. And we used to get film, And on our days off, we'd go around the different, there was nothing there in the area. There were no stores, no buildings, no hotels, nothing. There was absolutely nothing, just the wilderness. But we used to take pictures of the wilderness. And we have pictures of when they plant their rice, have oxen to plow it, and plant their rice, and then they would plant it and grow it, and then they would pick it. They would eat it themselves. The only thing they did that I never knew at the time, but I found out quick enough, when it came time to get the rice to harvest it, or when they planted it, they had these big tank-like things in the ground. And what they used to do, they used to go around all the different people and pick up their waste, the human waste, and they dump it in there. And that's what they used for fertilizer for it. And the first day when I went to school, I had a nice big breakfast. I was going out to work one day, and all of a sudden I hit that, and I lost my whole breakfast. And I never ate another breakfast going to work out there till that was gone. And when I came home, I was for years and years and years, I would never touch a grain of rice anywhere, because that's all I brought into my mind was that. Well, there's one more thing I want to add on to that, that other part. Do it now?
Yep.
All right. When I came my turn to leave Korea, I came back on a boat, and we landed in California. And when I walked off the gangplank and got down on the wharf, I turned, I looked at that boat, and I looked at the Golden Gate Bridge, and I said, I will never ever again leave this country to go anywhere. I've never been to Canada, and I've never been to Mexico. I've been right here, nowhere else.
Yeah.
So, and Mike Bozer was the one that got me interested in these pictures. He asked me if I had any old pictures of Plum Island. And I had a few, so I gave them to him. And he kind of got me interested in it. And then I knew people that had old pictures, and we went around and we borrowed the pictures and took copies of them, and we put them in the library. So that a lot of them are out in there in the archives, so that anybody wants to look at them, they can see them. Every picture I have, they have down there. Well, we had all our one thing. We had all our food. It was all eaten by my family. There was 6 of us in all. The only one that was missing was my father, because he was working all the time down there, down the island, down the clam plant. He used to work from 6 o'clock in the morning till midnight, and he'd be gone. So he'd have his breakfast and gone by the time we get, and then he'd have his supper when he'd come back late. But so there was my mother and my 3 brothers and myself. And that's with every meal. We never missed a meal. She never had to wonder where we were, because we were always right there. And we gobbled everything right down that they had. Like my father always said, I'd rather give the money to the store, the grocer, than to give it to the doctor. And that's what we did. I very seldom ever went to a doctor. Just like if I got bit by a dog or stabbed myself or something. But I'm 85, I'll be 85 in a couple of days, and I've never spent a night in the hospital anywhere. Not anywhere at all. Never go in a hospital, only just for get patched up. That would be it.
So you used to listen to the radio as a kid. What did you used to listen to on the radio?
We used to listen to, that's all we listened to. During the day, we never listened. We just after supper. We'd listen to a Lone Ranger or Flash Gordon or something like that, and then we'd go to bed. Get up the next morning and off we go again. My mother wouldn't see us all day, only at noontime when we come home. We went to Brown School, I went to Jackman School, and then went to high school. They just closed the Brown School up. At Jackman School, they closed that up and tore that down. That was one of the first ones to go. Then they did the one up on High Street, Kelly School. That was gone. Used to have the Courier School. There was another one way up the north end. I can't remember the name of it. But the other one was a wooden building. They closed that down a long time ago. Shut that right down. The minute they got the high school built, they built these new ones. That's how we went to school.
So, can you tell me about, so World War II, I mean, you were a teenager at that point during World War II.
Yeah.
Can you tell me about what was happening in the area or what you remember?
Well, they used to have blackouts. Every night was blackout time. They would, you had to either paint your windows black or you put a black curtain over it so no light could show through it. And if they had air raid wardens out, and they were mostly women that lived in the area, they picked them for it. And if you had a light, they'd knock on your door and tell you to put it off or cover it up. And that's what we had to do. But other than that, we never, during the day, there was not much happening in Newburyport. It was all over Salisbury Beach where the battery was. And then up further along up towards Portsmouth, they were up that way. They were mostly watching for boats and submarines in case they come in. There was a bunch of them down where the polio camp was, and before the polio camp, that's what it used to be. It was a Coast Guard, and they were down there watching for any people trying to come into the city, and down through there that way. So, other than that, we hardly knew there was anything going on. There was always things going on for get buy bonds and do this for the government and do that. We always was there doing all that stuff. So we kept pretty busy doing it.
So who are some of the characters, you talked about that guy that used to, the wino, people that you remember growing up?
Yeah.
Can you tell me about some of the people you remember growing up, like the characters that had it, that, you just remember?
Yeah, well, there was a guy named Dummy Merritt, and he used to go around with the camera, and he'd find a girl and he'd stop and he'd take a picture. He really, after a while, he made a nuisance of himself. But the funny part about it was he never had any film in it. And he was one of them. But there was a lot of those winos. During Prohibition. A lot of the Polish people down off Federal Street, Salem Street, they all made homemade brew, and they made I can't remember what they used to call it, some kind of a whiskey that they had, and the stuff they used a lot of it was poisonous. They'd get jiggy legs out of it, which means that their legs would wobble when they try to walk. They have an awful struggle doing it, but they still kept it on drinking it. It was unbelievable. But you could always find a place that had home brew, homemade beer. Everybody had that drank. They used to make it in wash tubs. And then they bottle it up. And then you go by some house someday and all of a sudden you hear pop, pop, pop. That would be the caps popping off of it. when they get aged and so forth.
Do you know the Littlefields farm over in Newbury?
Littlefield.
Yeah. They had a bunch of barns. They did a lot during Prohibition too with the hard cider.
Oh yeah.
Do you remember that?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, that was, what was the name of them? I can't think of the name.
Gene Littlefield, but I can't think of the
name of it, yeah.
Yeah, was it Adams? It was the Adams farm originally, I think.
No, it was, I know I'm never going to remember it because the guy used to make hard cider and Jimmy Adams's, that's it. That's the name of it you're talking about, right?
Yep.
It's on the middle road.
Yep.
Yeah, Jimmy Adams's cider mill. That was it.
That was like they did bootleg in there too.
They sold it, yeah. They sold the stuff right over the window, right through the thing. And there was another place, Johnny Styson's place in Raleigh, on Route 1A. You could go there any day, any time on a Sunday night or any time night, and go to the back window, rap on the window, and he'd look out. And if he knew you, he'd sell you whatever you wanted. This is a ragweed expedition here. The wagon that we used, and all these kids went around, helped us pick the ragweed and bring it back and take it up to the field, and they paid us for doing that. This is a the boat that I work for with Al Keyser, and it's pulled up on the. It's in the winter time, and it's pulled up there so it won't. So ice and stuff won't harm it. All right, he got this down by his house where he lived. He always lived on Plum Island, and at one time, I think there was only about 2 families that lived down there. There was his family and another one, and they used to hire a taxi. The city did to get down, pick them kids up, and take them to school. All the time they were there. Here we are out fishing, and he's up there looking for the fish, and I'm steering the boat. That was my job, to steer the boat and get him up onto him. Now he spotted some fish, so now he's starting to come down, and I'm steering the boat. I was about 14 or 15 years old right there on that thing there. This was when he had his family there. This is the same time, and he's up there and he's looking for the fish. They've gone down, and now he's waiting for them to come back up. And they swim along the top of the just under the surface of the water. And that's how they get it. Now he's thrown the harpoon, and there's the harpoon there, and he hit him. He's got the fish. You got about 100 feet of foot of land with a dart on it, and then on the other end is a barrel, and that's the barrel there going to the fish is towing the barrel. Then we go and we had bamboo poles with window weights on the end of it for weight, and flags on the top of it, and you'll see what that. That's how we we could go out. We pick up the harpoon and stuff, and then go back up and hook that flag onto the barrel, and then we could go off and go look for more fish. And we always knew where the barrel was because you could see the flag. Now here he is pulling the fish back, and that's the fish right there. And there's the line that's pulling it. That boat over there waiting because Al had already told him that he might need some help on it. See, that was July 1944. There's the fish now. He's getting a hold of it, and he wants to tie a rope on the tail so we can pull it into the boat. And that's the fish there. They had to pull the fish up. That fish weighed 850 pounds when we got it. And now he's got a hold of it, and he's going to bring it over into his boat, and then they'll let the thing back down and let the block and tackle back down and leave the fish in his boat there. This is another one that this very same day that we got another one, and we're pulling this one in. But this one was small enough so that we could do it ourselves. And we had 3 of them. That's the big one, and those other 2 there. So we could say we got a boatload. Now he's cutting the dart out of it so he can save it and use it on the thing, use it back over again. This is a fish here that we left it out there too long, and the dogfish got at it, and that's what they did to it before we could get to it. So we had to just unhook it and let it go because it was no good after that. And he's on the radio talking to somebody. And this is the guy that went with him after I went to school. And that's about the whole thing about bringing in the thing. This is the different reports of Keyser catching, record-breaking catch of tuna. This is a big one that he had there. Keyser hand line 600-pound tuna. That was off Plum Island. That was when we came back. That keeps him busy, it said. He catches the 575-pound tuna there. This picture in here, if I get this out of here. This is a picture of down Plum Island Point. They used to bring the fish in, and you get people that standing around, they grab hold of the rope, and they pull it right up into the clam plant. And they'd go right out on the platform out back, and that's where the guy used to pick them up to take them to Gloucester. This was a friend of ours that he fishes out of Annisquam. He was an excellent fisherman too. He used to get a lot of them. These are just more or less what I took them from. This is Simmons's Beach. This is down there. They got a sandy beach down there, down the south end of the city, off of Water Street, and that's where we used to go swimming every summer. This is the other side of it, and that's a raft they had out there. And they used to take the raft and they used to put coins all over the deck of the raft. Then they cover it with flour. And then they'd have the older guys on the edge of at the edge of the water, and they used to fire a gun and they'd swim out and try to get all the coins they can out of the flour, but they also got covered with flour. And we used to go out the next day, and we probably picked up more money that was in the mud than what they got. This is where they have water sports. Genie. This is something here. Well, on one of these stories, it tells about Jeannie Doyle. How she was the beauty queen. That was back in 1934. 1935 was there. 1930, that's when that Simmons Beach Day was there. It's all still the same thing. 1938, and then it ended. This is the picture of during the war effort. We took the wagon around, and we used to pick up all kinds of metal. We went around to each house. If anybody had metal, they were to come out and they'd throw it in the wagon for us, and we pull it up. And then we took it to Jackman School, where they had all the metal, and they'd pile it, and then they'd come and then take it into Boston. Make more bullets. This is down the center of Plum Island. There was a movie house here. There were flying horses. There was a dance hall up on the other side of it here. This was a place where I can't remember what that was. This is how they used to bring the hay in down Newbury, on the dung holes they call them. And that's all the haystacks that used to be out there. There used to be thousands of them. That's one of the first bridges across the Merrimack from Newburyport to Salisbury. That's out Plymouth Spring Road, the Artichoke, where they built one of the first roads across there. That's what this was. They put a form there, and they put the stone on, and then when they got it all done, they pulled the form out, and it'd be there. There was a steam engine they had that did up most of the lifting. This is down Newburyport in the square. This is where the Bank of America is now. That was Carl Castleton. He was a druggist, and he came here from Germany, and he opened a drugstore there. And he hired my wife's grandfather to help him in the thing, and he went to school and became a pharmacist. And when he retired, he took over the drugstore, and he ran it for quite a while till he gets sick. There's the old there's the fire station right there. This is probably back in the 50s. This one here. It comes up from this Merrimack Street, coming through the square. That's what was there. Winslow's Chips. There was a bowling alley. There was Tom McGlue, Weldon was in back there. There's bottled gas. This is going down Merrimack Street. There's the top of the fire station there. That's an old picture. There's a horse and wagon going along. This is one of the Jimmy Day parades they had coming through Market Square. There's Newton's. Fire station is there. There's a roof shoe up there. This was the old Wolf Tavern, right across from where the library is. It's that empty parking lot that they have there now. That was the end of operation. And finally, it just got so bad that they finally tore it out and got rid of it. Who was it? George Washington was there. Some of them elderly ones there. You know, this is the polio camp down Plum Island. That used to be the Coast Guard station during the war, where the Coast Guard was stationed there to make sure nobody came through off the boats. This is the gas tank, the gas house that they pump gas in. This is a tank right here. And when they fill that up, that thing would rise up in the middle like that, and then when the trucks drag it out, it would go back down again. And then they'd make more of it. They made that and pumped it up. This is along Scotland Road. That's the Lord Timothy Dexter house, the way it was back in 1980 something. Oh, back in there. This is the old hotel down at Plum Island on Old Point Road. There used to be a lot of people used to get down there to that. Finally, that got torn down. This is a picture of the clam shanties. And there's a trolley car coming by it. They used to go out and dig their clams. They come in here, and then they go inside the house there and have a little stove, and they shuck their clams out. That's where they did it. This is Thurl's Fried Clams. It's down there. This would be back in the 50s where this was. And those guys really knew how to fry clams. They fry clams today, and they tell you they got fried clams. But a lot of these people that are doing it now, they don't know how to fry clams. There was a special knack of doing it. That's something that was down in Florida. That's a personal one. Has nothing to do with Newburyport. This is something they used to do back in the 50s. You take an old Model A, and they used to take and let the air out of the tires, and then they could go on. They used them for beach buggies, and they'd drive up and down the beach. These guys had tents, and they used to stay there overnight. This guy with his family. My brother had one. Yeah, this is Gangwon-do. This is North Korea. This is South Korea. I was somewhere. This is a demarcation. That's what that line across there. That was the north, and this is the south. And I was stationed right up in here, right on that east coast. Somewhere's right in here. And it's all different areas. I can't remember what it was. This was my headquarters in Japan. That was a nice, beautiful building. Those guys that had duty there, they had it made. It was really great. This is the guy that helped me get the college slides into a university over there. Now I didn't tell you about that, did I? No. I met this guy. I said I met this guy from New Bedford at Fort Devens, and we came buddies, and we got over and some, and he brought a camera with him, and we got a hold of some film, the color film, and we went around to these different places taking pictures of different things. I'll be showing you some of them here. And when we got done, so I kept thinking, I brought him back with me, and I used to show people you know, different shows that wanted to see him. There wasn't too many that was too interested in it. So one day I was about 80, 81 years old. I was sitting there looking at them, and I said, then it dawned on my head, I said to myself, when I die, somebody's going to take these things and throw them in the trash. And I said, I don't want to see them go like that because they'd be too valuable for some people. So I said, that's I'm talking to myself. I said, I'm going to see if I can find a university or a museum that will take them. So in the meantime, somebody told me that this guy and his wife had moved in up where Kmart is, and he ran a laundry. So I took a couple of pictures that I had, and I took them in, and I told him who I was. I told him what I wanted to do. And he was interested in them right off, because it was his country. And so he gave me a couple of telephone numbers. They're ambassadors in New York. When I went out, I said to myself, geez, I don't think I want to bother involve myself with those people, because I don't think they're going to end up where I want them to end up. So I went back in, I said, don't you know of some school that we can send them to over there? He says, yeah, well, he says, I grew up with the guys over there that's in charge of a university, Kangwon-do University, and right in the same area where I was stationed. And so he emailed him and got talking to him, telling him what I had, and asked him if he was interested. They were just opening up a new art department, and they're going to make a museum there. So he says, yeah, they were interested. So anyway, we got them all together. We got them in, shipped up in a box. I had about 115, 120 slides. And we bundled them up, and he sent them over to him. The guy was tickled to death. They sent them back to the main university, had them all cleaned up, and they sent them back to them. And they have a festival over there every August in that area there. And when it comes, they took and I got a book over there that shows you that all them slides I had are in that book, and they had them books. They printed thousands of them, and all the people that came there, they were all Koreans, and they gave them out the books, and they were tickled to death to get them. And a lot of them were from different parishes or whatever it is they call them over there, and they knew that they were there, and so they wanted to send them to, you know, give them hot copies, and so they gave them to everybody all along that whole coast of those schools, and they sent them to the schools, so that now they're in the university that I sent mine to, and they're going to be there forever. You know, so anybody wants to use them, all they got to do is go to the thing. There's three of us. See, it's all nothing but. This is all there was there. There was nothing there at all. I took this picture when we was on the boat heading over there. You know where that is? That's Alcatraz.
Oh, really?
I went right by it. So I had to get a picture of that. That's the waterfront down there. That's the fishing boats. And this is the Golden Gate Bridge when you go under it. When I got back, I said, I'm never going under you again. Here we are in Japan getting ready to go into a plane. Yeah, that was something there. We get on that plane. It was one of those flying boxcars. I don't know whether you remember or not, that they used to have the propellers instead of on the front of the engine, they used to be on the back of it. And they used to push the planes. And once you get inside that plane and that plane took off, you couldn't hear nobody talking. It was so loud. The loudest thing, you couldn't sleep or anything. And we got halfway across that Japanese, well, I'll call it the Japanese Sea, because that's what we always knew it by. We got about halfway over, and one of the guys came out of the cockpit, leaned out by me, and he says, "Oh, we're losing oil." And went back, and I said, "Uh-oh." Now, I was up in here, and in order to get out of those planes, we all had parachutes on. They made us use the parachute. I don't know whether we'd ever know if we had to get out or what. But anyway, we'd had to go down to the end and jump out. And where I was sitting up in here, I would have been dead before the plane would have been in the water before I could even get a chance to get out of it. So anyway, we go along, and he came out 2 or 3 other times, and he was just about ready to cut the engine off, and when it came daylight, and there was Korean, we went in and landed at an airport and got out of it. And I never got in another one of those planes again for the rest of my life. We're getting ready to go over to Korea. That's just a pagoda. This here was in the, I think we landed in Osaka, Japan, and this is a submarine net that they had there, and they still had it out there. And before we could get into the harbor, that boat had to come out and open the thing and pull it aside so they could get the boat and go inside there. This is a guy that came from Brooklyn, New York. This kid here, he was a North Korean, and his mother and father were North Koreans. And the South Koreans killed the pair of them, and left this kid alone. How he ever got into camp where I was, I don't know. But he was there all the time I was there. And then when he became 6 years old, they came and got him and put him in school, so he'd learn Korea, so he wouldn't be without anything, you know. This was our toilets outside in the winter, and that was some cold sitting there. This is the truck that we had that we worked out of. We used to get in the back of that and used to do it there. This was our mess tent there. And I come in from eating one day, and I looked, and there goes our mess tent. Somebody somehow lit the thing afire, and it all burnt right to the ground. So we had to go out to other camps to get our meals. This was a houseboy that he cleaned the tents up for us. Shined our shoes, cleaned the tents up. These dogs were some that they raised there, and you had to keep the dogs penned inside the thing there, because if they get out into the area where the people live, they'd get them and they'd eat them, because dog meat was high on their diet. But you never see a dog running around over there, never. Oh, sometimes this is a job to get this apart. This was the guard that was outside of our gate there, that they had to get through there. And this was our area. The tents were all dug in. They dug holes, and they set the tents up inside there, and that's where we lived, in tents. And let me tell you, it was some cold there in the wintertime. And that's the houseboys doing our laundry. There's a plane there. We were using propeller planes. They didn't have jets then. There was no jets around. There's the plane taking off. I think we was on that one when we went back for rest and recuperation back in Japan. This is the kid from Brooklyn. That's just another picture of the area. That was our sign that was out front there, and that said Japanese tells them not to go in there. This guy came from Boston. That's me. And this guy came from Rhode Island. I was home here for a while, and one day I went down to Rhode Island and I met this guy. We had a good day together. And now we're setting up the aerials. We had to move, come away from, when they signed the armistice, they tried to straighten that line out so it would go right straight across. But the South Korean soldiers held them off, so they never made it. But we had to get out because they didn't know whether they were going to break through and grab us or what. Yeah, this is another area. This is all the rice paddies all frozen over in the wintertime. See them peaks here? That's what we're covered with, all mountains like that. There we are, setting the aerials up. There's a couple of Koreans building a boat, and that's how they used to saw the wood. We have machinery that does it, but they did it by hand. Like I suppose years ago, just like when we used to do it here. And there's the boat finished. See, the huts are all straw huts. They had no heat in them, no bathtubs, no running water, and none of that stuff. This is one of their boats here. It was all sail, no motors. That's me with one of the dogs. This was here. It looks like night, but it isn't. It was right at noontime, when the sun was out bright. That's the way that picture came out. There's another of it there. It's all nothing but snow. The wind comes right out of Manchuria. This was into Tokyo, looking out one of the windows. That's an LSD. This was down in Busan. We was on our way home, and they were unloading stuff there then. All right, now these are the books that they had at that festival that they gave out to all the people there. They printed thousands and thousands of them. And what that there means, that's Korean, what it means is the war will never end. They're still, as far as they're concerned, they're still fighting the war over there. And it'll never stop until they make it one country. That's the picture of me, which I had to send them a little bit about myself. That's my wife and myself. And that's another picture of that going fishing with Kiza. This was up near the fighting area up through there. These are all Korean camps. This was in Seoul. Here's a tank. This one here wasn't mine. I don't know where that thing come from. So they must have stuck that in over there. This is a guide or directing traffic in Seoul. That was up on the front lines. There's the front lines. These guys are heading for the front line. There's this picture of us in the camp. Now, in Korea, when it comes New Year's, they don't call it New Year's, they call it Tet. They celebrate it all the time. That's what these guys are doing. They're there, they do hand wrestling like that, and exercise, and would seem to us like be foolish, but that's what they do. This was up there, there's those three guys there, and this is a bunch of guys just waiting, hanging around, not doing nothing. They were all South Koreans. They were back resting the same as we were. And that's a houseboy, and that's a snow goose. This is a kid on a sled. That's one of the old-time wooden sleds that we have. This is in Seoul too, this one. These are all in Seoul. There's a building where they bombed it out. There's another one they did a job on, and most of these are in Seoul. That's my headquarters in Seoul. They did a good job on that one too. There's an old man carrying a bunch of wood. A bunch of women carrying everything they carried. The women carried, they carried on their head. I wonder if they don't have headaches. There's a couple of them walking along the road there. There's another one with a bundle of stuff in the bags. Those are school kids. These two are orphans. These things were school kids there. Am I going too fast?
You're good.
There's an old lady there, and there's an old man. They were Papa-san, Mama-san. There's another guy that they're beside his house. They had no furnaces in those houses. All they had to do was they built a fire in the front of the thing, and they put tunnels in them. We used to follow back through, and that's how they kept warm. There's a kid standing there. There's another old guy there. But the shacks, that's all they are, is just shacks. So to keep the cold air off them, that's all. This was in the garden in Seoul. Seoul was a lot better than what it was out in the suburbs. There's a bunch of them going to school there. That's in Town Square. These are all in Seoul, every one of them. Look at these things. They used stuff that we had and built houses out of them.